to Money, 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 your weekly personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. 14th of November is Children's Day. So first of all, let me start off by wishing all the children, just in case they happen to be watching this show, and of course all of their parents out there, a very, very happy Children's Day. Now this is as good a time as any to think about how you parents can best secure your child's future. What is the best way to save up for him or her, whether it's college education, whether it's wedding or any other expenses? What are the right insurance products to make sure that your kids are well taken care of just in case something were to happen to you? These are the questions that we will answer on today's show. Joining me to do that are Abhijit Bhave, CEO of Karvy Wealth, personal finance expert Roongta, and Shweta Aggarwal of Ideal Insurance Brokers. Thank you all very much for joining in. This is a subject that's close to really all our hearts and specifically all the parents out there. And it can be a little more confusing than what meets the eye, I'd like to say. You know, you have these products called child plans. You have products that the mutual fund is offering, that the insurance world is offering. And as a parent, you're always wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough to secure my child? So let's get some opening thoughts to begin with. Mr. Bhave, why don't you kick things off?
So, when I was a child, I asked my parents, how much do you love me? And they said, you'll only come to know when you become a parent. So, for anybody, child's future is the biggest dream possible in life. And to convert that into financial goal and to create a perfect financial plan becomes a very important thing for every parent. So, and compared to the yesteryears, it's become very complicated now in terms of how much to save. Because no longer people want to make their children doctors and engineers. There is a lot of education that they can have in India and overseas. There are other costs like tuition fees and students' housing. So they have to create the right corpus. So the options can be many. Earlier people used to put money in property and in gold. Now they put money in financial assets. So you can start by saying that pure debt is a strict no-no because the returns are very low. You look at equity. When you look at equity, you start by saying, let me start looking at mutual funds and let me start doing a simple systematic investment plan. And the point is, once you have the amount in view, once you know the number of years, and once you know how much you have to save, then you look at that. Then you add an element of protection, because if something happens, khuda na khasta, to the parent, then what do you do with the life of the parent? And then look at a combination of investment and protection.
Okay, absolutely. Now, that sounds very simple, but as I said, it's, I think, easier said than done. Mr. Roongta, I think let's take up the first point first. Knowing what is this corpus that you're trying to build, that itself can be a daunting task, because it might just seem like a 2,000, 3,000 rupee SIP today, but is it really going to be enough?
So you're absolutely right. You know, how much should I invest, every month, so that whatever dream that I have for my child will be fulfilled? And I think for doing that, you really need, you have calculators and things like that, but the way you could do that is you decide that if your child was to get educated today, and I'm assuming primarily we are talking of education, that if my child was to be educated today, and you have no clue, right? The child is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years old. Nobody has a clue what is he going to do, right? But let's assume he would go for a professional course. What would it cost? And I think depending on your means, you could estimate that cost in whether that would happen in India, which would be slightly different, versus, say, if it happens overseas. And overseas is an euphemism for US, basically, at least in India. So you do that, take a certain inflation into account, and you arrive at the number that you intend to, that you need to invest.
So let's try and put this number out there, as arbitrary as it might be. But if you're talking about starting a plan today to create a corpus, let's say, 18, 19, or maybe 20 years down the line for a child that's just born today, for India, what would that lump sum be that you'd work with? And for the US, what's that lump sum that you'd work with?
So again, I think if you look at, and India is no longer as cheap as it used to be, but if you looking at undergraduation in India, okay, a professional course, assuming merit, again there are so many things, right? Assuming that he would get through in competitive exams, he or she would get through. Say maybe 10 to 15 lakhs a year in today's money, into 4 or 5. Okay, so that would roughly be 40 lakhs to 60 lakhs
And that's
in
just
today's
for education
money.
in India.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And hold that thought about the just. The US, on the other hand, okay, you have to assume no scholarships, nothing. I would say about 40 to 45 lakhs a year, including living expenses, multiplied by the number of years. The other important thing, people tend to think that if I plan for my child's education, that's enough. That's not enough. Because guess what? When the time comes for the child's education, if you have not planned for your retirement, if you have not planned for other things, right, those needs are going to come in between.
Yeah.
And there, you cannot plan in isolation for your child.
Absolutely.
You have to have a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget that.
That is the whole thing, because there are so many different things that are vying for that same pie of domestic savings. It's retirement, it's immediate needs, and of course, it's long-term goals like planning your child's future. Let's also bring in Shweta Aggarwal into the conversation. Shweta, now here's where it gets interesting. The marketplace is littered with products, and you have these fancy ads which urge the parent to save more and invest more. Your thoughts on the subject?
Right. So every insurer is now coming out with a child plan, because child future is dear to a parent's heart, right? Every child is like the most important being in the parent's life. So it is important that they do whatever best they can, not only for education. They want to plan for the marriage, they want to plan for their comfortable living, they want to plan also for, suppose they want to set up a business. So all these, keeping in mind all these, the insurance companies have come up with plans which acts as investment cum insurance plans. So they not only insure the child's future, they also finance the major turning points in their life, as we just discussed. So this is where insurance differs. It is not only into investment, it also insures the child's future by covering the life of the parents. So suppose you are investing in mutual fund or equities, but what after 2 years suddenly one of the parent dies? So who is to pay the continuing investment? This is where insurance comes. They have a rider called waiver of premium. So in case something happens to the parent, the premium payment still continues by the insurer itself. So the burden of continuing the investment does not fall on the child or the family.
Okay, fair enough. At this point, this conversation is going to get really, really interesting. And I must tell our audience that we have diverse viewpoints and opinions on the show today. And that's because it's to each his own. It depends on your goals, your planning and your risk appetite. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a situation. So let's just take it one step at a time and look at products. Starting first with what the mutual funds are offering. We'll keep insurance away for a bit right now. Now, interestingly, as I was trying to do some homework, I realized that even asset management companies are offering so-called child products. Now, I don't know how this works. Mr. Bhave, if you could explain, are these just plain vanilla mutual funds which are just called child funds? Are there any additional benefits or features?
So these are mutual funds plus something. So for example, there is HDFC Children's Gift Fund plan, and there's ICICI Prudential Child Care Fund. Now both these are hybrid funds. So they have a component of debt and equity. The difference is that there's a 5-year lock-in. The difference is that the money can be taken out either at the end of 5 years or when the child becomes 18, whichever comes later. Okay. And the difference is there's a small insurance cover which is actually just an accident cover. So
okay, this cover covers who? The parent?
The parent. But I wouldn't recommend buying this as a child plan. You can as well buy a normal hybrid fund which will serve the same purpose. But in my view, if you have a long-term goal, it is better to buy a pure equity fund, and later as the goal comes nearby, you convert to debt.
On the mutual funds which have the child tag to them, Mr. Roongta, so what's your thought?
See, I think this child tag, whether attached to a mutual fund or whether attached to an insurance company, these are marketing jargon. Okay. And I think the mutual funds have come up with this as a half-hearted sort of riposte to the plethora of child plans that are available from the insurance industry.
Side,
my advice, strong advice to every parent, okay, If a plan advertises itself as a child plan, it's not a right plan. Just keep away. I'm absolutely clear.
Well, I told you, viewers, that this one is a hot debate on money, money, money. So we have to take a very quick break. But we'll get into the nitty-gritties why Mr. Roongta says that don't go into products that have the child plan tag with them. And then there is a counter view which suggests that, yes, there is discipline which helps you save and invest properly through these products. The debate will continue on the other side. Don't go anywhere.